right, my friends. Well, we're coming to an end in this unit on perspective, and I think that we've covered a lot of ground. In fact, I think that we've taken you from very basic understanding to a very advanced understanding. So let's do a quick review. So now, we started our understanding with just some very, very basic one-point perspective. You know, this is the type of thing that you're going to learn anywhere. You might have even learned this stuff in elementary school. But like all the understandings that we've learned, we've used them to make drawings because that's really what it's all about. It's just a means to an end. And so here we have a very simple one-point perspective onto a vanishing point. But already we're seeing things like the ability to take and divide spaces, to bring things around, and to arrange things beyond just the simple one point. In this one here, we used these things to create an inside thing, and we saw how we could bring one thing over to another, once again lining things up and finding things in space, not just making things go to a vanishing point, but finding things in space. Here, we took that to a really advanced degree. This is sort of the classic railroad tracks that you'd often see in some kind of perspective lessons, but here you could see where not only did we get exact spacing on the railroad ties themselves, but we also used those principles to be able to get exact spacings on the fence posts. We were able to use these same ideas of one-point perspective to find things and locate things in space, right? No, regardless of where they were at, and get them to be the correct level. But like all of them, it wasn't just about the perspective, right? These are not perspective puzzles. It was really about creating a composition. And I'm really happy to say that creating a composition is one thing that the students have done very well with, very well indeed. And that's really what the perspective is all about, isn't it? It's just a means that you can learn that will get your compositions to be very, very naturalistic and very believable. And that's what it's really all about, isn't it? Okay, so in this one, we took it far further than most things do, and we developed not only a square, but a cube. So now we had a system of measurement that we could really use in here. And with the cube, you could also do things like make arches and circles and stuff like that. Okay, moving beyond one-point perspective, we went to two-point perspective. Also sort of a staple in the education of perspective drawings and this idea of linear perspective. And we did sort of a classic house with that simple two-point perspective, but you know, we made it kind of complex. And once again, thinking about all the details that can go into a drawing that make it look a little bit better. But whereas this one looks a little bit fish-eyed because of the fact that it goes above and in some places below the real true field of vision that a person would have, it still, you know, looks kind of cool, right? But the thing about the last one was that you could only do things into perspective that were at a right angle to you, right? And so in this one, we learned how to put things at an odd angle, at any old angle that you could, right? So there you go, another sort of advanced thing. Finally, in this one, here I'll go ahead and put it to the side just so that you can see it a little bit better. We learned a little something about inclined planes, right? And continued to use the cubes and continued with the idea of looking at how you could extend the vanishing points to where things did not look near so fish-eyed as what they did before. And maybe, you know, once again, really sort of emphasize the idea of the art, of the lighting, of the shading, of the shadowing, and all these other parts, because perspective is not an end in itself. It is a means to an end. And with all of them, we always just started with a rough drawing. Because once again, the perspective is a tool that should serve you as the artist. And so you just sort of sketch out your ideas. Then you get the ruler. Don't start with the ruler, right? Get your general ideas down and then turn them into the composition that you want. Okay. So to continue our quest for knowledge here, we're going to have to go way down the rabbit hole, as they say, way deeper, beyond sort of the simple understandings that a lot of us have had in previous lessons on perspective. Okay, so let's start with this. This is the big idea right here, is that you do not see this, right? You think that you see this, right? This square right here, but you really don't. Let me explain what I mean. What you really see is something like this. And you're like, wait a minute, Mr. Kuhn, that's crazy. I don't see things like that. That's not how I would see a square, a wall, or a large object, right? I see this. If something is square, this is what I see. But wait a minute, let me explain a little bit. Okay, the thing is that you are further away from this edge here and this edge here than you are from the center. Okay, I've got a few diagrams that's going to illustrate this just a little bit better. Okay, so now once again, the 1-point perspective and the 2-point perspective that we've learned so far, that's going to do it for you. That's going to get you through 95% of the things that you'd want to do. And so that's fine. That's fine. Those are very, very valuable. But if you're ready, let's take it a little bit further. Okay. We're used to the classic horizon line and vanishing point. But that's not really how vision works, right? We're in a 3-dimensional world, really 4 dimensions, but okay, let's eliminate the idea of time here. In a 3-dimensional world of height and width and depth, you're going to have 3 vanishing points, right? Okay, so let's take a look at this. We've got our perspective sphere, right? It's no longer just a horizon line. And so within this sphere, this is what you see. All right, so let me explain this diagram a little bit. Here I've got the picture plane. In other words, your canvas, your paper, whatever, right? And in the center here, I'll have my central vanishing point. Okay, which generally speaking, that is where a single vanishing point would be the most natural place to put it because it's your focus. Okay. Over here, I've got my 2 vanishing points, right? When I use my two-point perspective. And they are in a very specific area. And I'm going to show you exactly how and why those are where they are, right? And in here you can see this is my field of view. Roughly 2 to 1. You know, I would say that HDTV, right? There's a reason why we have HDTV in the configuration that we do, which is 16 by 9, almost 2 to 1, but not quite, because it's very, very similar to human vision. Okay. Anyways, so, but these vanishing points, these are geometrically placed. Once again, I'll explain that a little bit more later. And then we've got our 3rd vanishing point, which is outside of our field of vision. Okay, so how do we derive these points? What makes them so special, right? Well, here's a rather confusing diagram of how it works. And at a moment, I'm just going to break into, actually, I made a little 3D, sort of diagram. So we'll take a look at that there, an illustration. But very simply, basically, if you had a sphere, right, and you could flatten that sphere out to a circle, right, and if you could imagine spokes running through that sphere at a 90-degree angle, then this is where that spoke would encounter the edge of that sphere, right, when you flatten it out. And that's a very special place. Okay, so I know that that's going to be kind of hard to see on a flat diagram like this, so I've made a special little 3D presentation to help explain it a little bit. All right, so imagine we've got a box, a simple cube, right? And so it's going to disappear at a certain point off to infinity. And this circle actually represents infinity. And you'll see you've got this outer circle and you've got what looks like an inner circle, but it's not really an inner circle. Let's take a look at it. So if I was to look at this from the top, you would see that that's actually spokes. Same spokes like on a wheel, right? Those are all equal. None is any different than the other. right? But when we look at it this way, and we see all of them, we can see that if you were to draw a line straight down like this, you would have an intersection point right here. So let's take a look at that. Okay, so that's where that would be, right? And so we would see that if we were to go to a right angle here, see these are the right angle of that cube, that those would go off to these vanishing points. Let me illustrate that a little bit better. Let this ellipse represent the dimension this way, from top to bottom. This is from side to side, and this is from side to side. Let me show you what I mean. So if we were in the front, right, you would see that this is disappearing off into the distance. We're just looking at this right at the front, and it's disappearing out of your field of vision this way, out of your field of vision this way, and off out of your field of vision this way as well. Okay. So if we were to put this at a right angle, let me get it right there, you would see that where these come together is on this little part of the sphere right here, right? It would have to. It would have to. It's not that these became any shorter by magic. It's just that your perception of them became shorter. So hopefully that has made things a little bit clear, and you can see how you have this sphere of influence, the sphere where everything goes off to infinities, more or less, right? And that these guys here, when put at an angle, go to a certain spot. Now that was at a right angle, right? But of course, as you were to spin it, you would have other points that you could find along the way. And that's exactly what we're going to do further on in the lesson. Okay, so how would we construct something like this, like I showed on my initial diagram? Well, we could make some measurements. So if you had the distance between here and here, you would notice that you could divide it. Okay, there's 1 unit, 2 units, 3 units, 3.5. And it's sort of a magic, sort of a place to be, because it's going to make a perfect square, right? There's a great relationship between squares and circles, because a square is a square, it's not a rectangle. And a circle is a circle, it's not an oval. These are wonderful measured things. Thus, you can use them as units of measurements, and you can make things just, well, right. Okay, Mr. Kuhn, you've got me convinced. I've got a perspective sphere now instead of just a horizon line. I've got these points here on each side, and they're there for a reason. Okay, cool, I've got it. So that allows me to make something a little bit like this here, right? So if I've got my old-fashioned horizon line right here, and I've got my picture plane where I've got my piece of paper or my canvas, I've got my field of view right here, and I've got those points put on the end, and that's there because of, those spokes coming down. Okay, I got that. And then I've got this, which is my points that are sort of off to infinity because it's a sphere. All right, got it. So I'm going to make the perfect 3-point perspective drawing now. Let's take a look at what it would look like. Oh, Mr. Kuhn, that's not what I was expecting at all, right? I expected something perfect, and you're giving me this fish-eyed thing that looks like an M.C. Escher drawing. Well, here's the thing. This is why this doesn't work exactly the way that you would think it would. It's because in this illustration here, you are seeing everything all at once. In other words, you've taken the whole world and just boiled it down to this one little drawing. Okay, so here's you, let's say, and here's your visual focus, right? This is the part of your eye that's really seeing things, right? And you're seeing the whole world on this piece of paper, But when you look at the world, that's not what you see at all. You just see what's in here. What do I mean? Well, let me show you. So here's you again. Here's that visual focus, because we are animals after all, and we are organic, and we just see in this visual center right here. We're not like a camera that sees everything equally. So your visual focus and your peripheral vision right here. And that makes up your whole sort of field of vision entirely, right? But you're not really looking at these. This is where you see like sort of out of the corner of your eyes, so to speak. You're really only looking here. And when we look here, these are pretty close to being straight, right? That coupled with your psychology that says, yeah, it's straight, constructs a picture in your mind that you've never looked past. That, okay, straight is straight and that's all there is to it. And when I look this way, then, the perspective kicks in and you see it just straight that way or that way, right? But when you're looking at something just straight on, this is what's happening. It's going off to that vanishing point, off to infinity as it gets smaller and smaller, but you're not seeing it. You're only seeing this part, right? And so, okay, Mr. Coon, if I can't do this, if I use your system here and all I get is this crazy fisheye, then what was the whole point? Well, the point is that you can use it actually, right? You can just keep things in that one small sort of visual focus, right? Okay, let me show you what I mean. Okay, so if you'll notice that the center cube actually didn't look too bad. This sort of rectangle right here, it didn't look so bad because that was in the center. And so if we were to use three-point perspective, you would see that we could use it in the center, just like this. Another time that you could use three-point perspective is if you really did want to make some sort of a dramatic statement. And that's kind of neat, so if you see things like visual effects in movies, or if you see illustrations like you would see in a comic book, that kind of thing, things that are really exaggerated. Yeah, then you could use your three-point perspective that way, and that'd be just fine. Okay, so now don't worry, I'm gonna show you a little bit of how to go about doing this. All right, so on a poster board, I've made kind of a simplified version of this. In other words, I just have that inner circle and then the outer circle, and those are there for a reason as we've gone over. Okay, so there it is. And also, I've squared it off. Remember I was saying that there's something kind of magical about the placements of these circles? Well, here it is that because of the relationship of this circle here, and you know how we got it, right? If you were to make a square from this circle, it would touch the edges of this circle. And that's truly amazing because if this circle was smaller, it would not do that. If this circle was larger, it would not do that, right? These corners would not line up with the outer circle like that. So yeah, it's kind of just, it's a magical sort of thing, and it all just works out. It's a beautiful geometry. Okay, but anyways, let's go ahead and just make a nice little three-point cube here. So I've kind of got this all laid out already. The thing that I would do is I would start just like I would start with any cube, and I would make my leading edge. Okay. Now notice something right off the bat. I'm not drawing this exactly straight. In fact, I've kind of drawn this out a little bit ahead of time just to give myself some guidelines. But you'll notice that I've made a bit of an ellipse, a little bit of a curve right here. Okay, well, let me continue and you'll see a little bit more. Okay, so then I'm just going to take this off to my vanishing points. So I'll go this way here, it's nice and straight with a ruler, and down here, once again, nice and straight with a ruler. Of course, back to the other one. And at the top, something like that there. You know, going back to the vanishing points. Okay, now look at this. On the edge, I have not drawn this straight. I haven't drawn it straight for a reason. Let me finish drawing it real quick. So I've got this, and you know, I'm an artist, so I'm using my perception a little bit to draw a nice, smooth, sort of elliptical arch or arc. I don't know. Something like that, right? But wait a minute. No, I did cheat a little bit. I've got this metal ruler right here. And after drawing it, roughing it in, I did check it. And yeah, you know, actually I had gotten pretty good. So cool, right? But wait a minute. Why the arc, by the way, or the arch? I don't know. Is it arch or arc? Well, it's because of this, right? So you see like on a basketball or on a globe, how you've got these lines of longitude, right? And they don't go parallel forever and they don't go straight in. They make a curve because it's curving around the globe, the sphere, the ball, right? Okay. And so remember, this is a sphere. This is not a flat thing. This is representing a sphere. And so you can cut through the center of a sphere, and that gives you straight lines. But as you go down the surface of the sphere, that's going to give you these curved lines, right? And it's going to make your 3-point perspective look a lot more realistic. Okay, so the other thing is that when we look at this magical relationships here, this is a cube, right? This is sort of like a perfect cube. And before I'd had you draw a cube by, you know, finding the distance here, going like this, finding the diagonal, which is a little bit longer distance. Well, with this setup, there's really not that much guesswork because if you look at the square that's created by the outer circle and the square that's created by the inner circle, and use this point up here, right? Not this one. You would think it would be this or this, right? But it's not. It's this one. It has to do with the curvature of the sphere. But anyways, and you were to come down from there, you would get your measurements to make a perfect cube. Okay, cool, right? But anyways, back to the whole arc or arch thing here, right? It looks pretty natural. And like I say, I've given you the reason why. On the other hand, let me just show you, because a lot of times you'll see 3-point perspective done with straight lines. This is what it would look like with a straight line. And you can see that it kind of looks more, well, perspective-y, right? Okay. Well, I hope that that's been really informative, and it's really taking you a long ways. But there's still a few more places I want to go with this before we're totally done. One is that we want to be able to look at things not only at a right angle, and we've done that before, right? We've taken things that weren't totally at a right angle and we've turned them a bit, right? But just like this little block right here in my hand, we want to be able to tumble things, tumble and twist and spin in all different directions. Okay, well, when you think of things as a sphere instead of just a straight horizon line, that actually becomes pretty easy. So I'm going to show you that in the next tutorial. And after that, of course, I'm going to put this into practice. So I'll do a drawing. And I believe in the drawing, I want to be able to do it to where we don't have to have a diagram like this. We can do it, with just a ruler like we've been doing things, folded up piece of paper, etc. But still get this perfect perspective and still use this deeper understanding that hopefully we've gained. Okay. Well, good luck with everything, and I'm looking forward to making the next video.